Alderman Bridges,
Here.
Alderman Sears.
Here.
Let's stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Approval of agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any personal appearances?
We do not, sir.
I didn't think we did. Department reports. Mr. City Administrator.
So as you'll know that the you'll notice the departments have been rearranged.
I like that.
They are now in alphabetical order. The old way was a little off-putting to our clerk, who wanted to see it alphabetically. So
All right.
with that,
No problem.
You'll see
Because they
that-
are labeled A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, our investments, we've made $120,000 so far this year. Again, the interest rates are dropping a little bit. Actually, a meeting with the bank to talk about maybe moving some of the money back into CDs because we can get some more favorable rates here in town. So we're going to have those conversations. We're supposed to do it this week, but with this last week with the snow and the ice,
Sure.
it was a little problematic. So, but we'll get that done. There were only 2 candidates for filing, so our board makeup will not change going forward. We'll still have the election, but as long as they vote for themselves, we are good to move forward.
Well, I can make it that day.
And that's all that I have. So,
All right. Mrs. Touchstone,
Nothing from me. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Do we have anything from code enforcement?
he did not submit a report. Basically, the previous report, those actions are still either ongoing.
Okay.
The one thing that we have noticed is that as he's driving the city, instead of using the former taxi, he's been using the animal control van. And so one of the things that is a byproduct of him driving the animal control van as the codes person is that there's a lot fewer animals running at large in the city. I think it's because people see it and see that we're actively pursuing it, so it's having a positive impact.
All right.
Ryan, thank you for the you and Matt for the Christmas party down at the Gobbler's Roost. That was amazing. Appreciate it, guys.
It was nice having all the. We had all but 4 staff members there, and so it was nice to have everybody together. It really was a great event.
Have you been back? Have you got a chance to go down there yet?
We haven't, no, because of the weather.
Yeah.
We're going to try to make it in the next couple of weeks.
Cool.
Thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. It's our pleasure. Anything from EMA?
Just a little bit of a 4-hour power outage during the storm, northeast part of town. But everything got taken care of, came up on the line, so we got fortunate that way. Kind of a rough storm with cold weather and ice, but other than that, everything's fine.
Thank you, sir.
So
Chief,
on
go ahead.
emergency management, is it worth discussing just putting something on the website? Kind of picking up from our text conversation.
And we can have that talk for a second. The way I understand it is that if there's an emergency that has to deal with emergency management, then people call City Hall, and then we get a hold of them and find out if it's in their jurisdiction or whatever, right? I mean,
Well, so
how are we organizing that as of right now?
So the way that we're set up right now, our emergency management is more a response to the trickle down.
Right.
Either the governor will declare a state of emergency, you as the mayor can declare an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
But typically, it's done on a much larger level. The governor will declare an emergency for a region.
Right.
Typically, the ones that we see the most are tornadoes. You know, we don't see too much
Sure,
flooding,
sure.
things of that nature. But they'll declare an emergency, which will trigger those groups, and then that's
Nope.
when ours kind of kick in.
I guess what I'm getting at is that we don't have really anything. It's not necessary for EMA to deal with individual issues. Go ahead, Jeremy.
They are not a benevolent organization.
Right.
They're an emergency organization.
Right.
And just like the definition of emergency continues to get broadened all over the world for the 911 system, everything else, we tend to think of smaller things as emergencies than what we used to. But this isn't going to be something that, it's not going to be something that one or even a small group of people that are having trouble with power outages or
Right.
whatever are going to go to. That's not what that group is for. It's for a disaster, an emergency, a disaster.
Right.
Think of it as a subgroup of FEMA. That's what it is. FEMA, SEMA, EMA. So those are the levels. There should be a KEMA for county, but there's not. So anyway,
Well, there is,
but you know, you're FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Association, State Emergency Management Association, and EMA is just your local, more or less, branch of those organizations. So it's not. A lot of people misunderstand what it's for when they see that it's there, but it's. I think it's really. If anything, we could put on the website that, you know, define it, what it is, and that it's not a benevolence organization. We have other organizations in town for that, Optimist Club, Lions Club, a lot of the churches and Ministerial Alliance, things like that. But we don't need to be tasking the EMA with that kind of stuff.
yeah, and that was for clarification.
Yeah.
That I was trying to get at. I wasn't trying to say that we needed that. Yeah, Ken. Would you mind?
One thing, like last weekend, I went out and purchased another chainsaw. We keep an inventory of things that we have locally here. If the county needs particular things, granted they have more resources down at the sheriff's department, but I have an inventory of like chainsaws and things that I've bought that can be used to assist them, to assist the fire department. So you're right, it is a for a major disaster. It's kind of hard to define, but I'm trying to build up the supplies that we have so I can assist in with the county and with the fire department. And it's a slow process.
Sure.
No, I just think you know, we got a great website and totally agree. Thank you, Jeremy. You know, to just clarify on our website to say this does, you know, us having a cold snap for 2 days and power being out in a couple of dozen homes, you know, contact the church,
Right.
contact the Optimist. You know, when there is a national disaster or state mandated, that's when it can get triggered, and we take it. Just something like that.
Sure.
Help folks out.
And we could also, you know, have a link to the local warming centers. And, you know, if there was a disaster, I mean, we could open up City Hall, we could open up things to be warming centers, but that would
Absolutely.
kind of be a last ditch or an additional resource to the other, you know, the churches that open the doors, the Optimist Club.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood where you was going with that line of questioning.
Well, and I'm sorry. It's the overuse of emergency systems is a little bit of a hot point for me. So because that's my job,
Yeah.
I work in that career field, and so it's the amount of overtaxing that the fire, EMS, EMA, police service is getting because people just don't take care of themselves anymore, and people don't take care of other people anymore, is frustrating. So I get a little bit fired up about it. But on that, I think, what about doing like a department head of the month on the webpage or something where, you know, you could do, this is Ken Newsom, he's the EMA director, the EMA does this, yada yada yada. This is Gary Disney, he's the fire chief, blah blah blah. And, you know, each month you could have a different department head or employee. That's just an idea. I don't know.
You know, I think it's a very good idea.
Yeah, I think we take a lot of things for granted, information loop wise, just because we've been here for so long and we know. And I think it'd be great for us to just kind of keep it in mind.
Absolutely.
Well, and I take it for granted too that not everybody knows all the same stuff that I do. So, but like when people start asking questions about EMA, I automatically get defensive because I know how hard these guys work, and nobody knows about it. They're, and like I said, I've spent many a snowy night sitting in that station over there on a weeknight, and had to get up and go, had to leave there and go to work the next morning. And nobody ever knew, and I don't do it because I want anybody to know, and they don't do it because they want anybody to know. So when people start saying, "Well, what does the EMA do around here?" I'm just like, and I need to just take it at face value instead of, "What do you mean? What does the EMA do around here?" But
Because what they mean is, what do they do?
right?
That's the
Yeah,
question.
yeah. So anyway,
So are you taking a lot of calls here at City Hall about stuff?
We haven't taken a tremendous amount. I think during the ice storm, some people were without power, and I think they were looking for resources, and they just weren't sure where to go. And I think that's what kind of stemmed the.
And historically, it always been the Methodist Church, that would, well, now it's not there. And so what would happen? And, well, it's the optimist. Okay, well, then how
Hard
they
to
going
walk there for a lot of people.
Yeah, so.
See, if we know those calls are coming in, then between the city, between emergency management, fire, whatever, we can coordinate to have someplace scheduled for people to go. I know we've talked to the office before about using their building and things of that nature, but this is the first I'm hearing that we took calls about
Did the city hall take any calls?
We weren't here. We were
Okay,
closed.
it wasn't really coming from to City Hall.
It's just people out
It was
there.
information coming to me from the sheriff.
Okay.
If I knew of any resources, yeah.
and then that led into the discussion of, well, what does EMA do around here? Or that's the way
we
I
had
heard
a
it. That's not what
sidebar
was
conversation, but it all stemmed from him reaching out to local people, leadership people, that finding out who was available to help, basically. So, but I don't think we took any official, actual calls of.
I think we might have had one or two during the day.
Okay.
Of just somebody looking for a resource. And
Okay.
I took a couple just over lunch, and so I just recommended that they go to their local churches in the area.
Right.
Yeah, the Ministerial Alliance is great for that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Individual
Yep.
cases.
Okay, let's move on. Chief Disney, do you have anything for us?
I really don't, sir. I haven't been to a meeting in such a long time. I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions.
Seeing if any faces have changed.
Yeah. But no, I don't have anything unless you all need something particular.
Now, I will say, we have the radio here at City Hall, and so we get to listen in on the calls for service, and that thing goes off very, very frequently, and so they're pretty busy over on that side.
We're blessed to have the people to take the calls. That's the biggest thing. Hard to find daytime people. We've been pretty lucky.
Thank you, Chief. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Chief Disney's report is in the packet.
Chief Dillon's.
Dylan's, I'm sorry.
As you can see, their calls for service they've been busy as well.
1,845 for the year 24.
Did you have end of year numbers? Just curious.
I don't have them pulled up yet. But
Okay.
I'll bring that for next month. We're probably in the ballpark about 400 calls.
On the positive side, I think our community is benefiting from, the guys are busier than we can remember. And you like it that you're seeing the fruits of all of the efforts. And I feel like Adrian overall is a great community. And there's a real positive sense. And that's a big thank you to our guys. All the heavy lifting you do dealing with the less desirable part of our community.
We have great staff.
You do. Good team.
All right. Mr. Hummel, do you have anything from?
I wasn't at the meeting, so
We this last meeting, we were reevaluating after the year of all the accomplishments. We're kind of going over the wants and needs list again. Everybody is taking that and they're reevaluating to see where we want to focus on for the upcoming year. Our volleyball courts that you guys granted the park board extra funds to put in, those have been very successful. They actually have about $2,000 that the tournaments have raised that now they want to put back into the program. So we're looking at different ways to improve that. So it's been a very productive, good year in the park.
Excellent. I'm not heard any bad stuff either.
and what
so it's
these bleachers,
pretty awesome.
they came from Fort Riley.
Yes, and so now with in the park, before we'd have to shuffle bleachers from one sport to another, moving them around. Now each sport will have dedicated bleachers. We're able to scrap all the old, some of the unsafe ones that have been around for quite some time. So now there's aluminum bleachers that'll be throughout the park, and so it's uniform, it's safer, and it just increases the appearance of the park. We did finish the privacy fence around Public Works. I don't know if you guys have been out to the park.
Yeah, it looks great.
We put that around there so that way our collection of tools and equipment doesn't become
Somebody else's collection.
well that and it's not an eyesore. Because sometimes there's only so much you can do with some of our equipment.
Right.
And so now, when you're out at the park, now you don't see that. We also put a gate in the fence, which allows staff to be able to go from Public Works lot directly into the park without having to get onto 18 highway. So now, anytime of our parks crew, they're moving gravel or they're doing things now, on their gator. Now they don't have to access the highway to be able to access the park. So it was just an improvement in safety as well.
And we have the best sledding hill around.
I have heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
It's
awesome.
fun to walk back up. It's fun.
So we need to put a
It's a lot of fun to
staircase
go.
in on the side of that hill.
Well, on
For sledding.
on the parks, once in needs, I think
A
a
ski
tow rope.
lift?
Yeah.
A tow rope was actually talked about to pull it back up to the top of the hill.
Yeah, after about 6 times down the hill, just
Slow wind
kids, I
slide.
was
Slow
like,
wind slide.
you guys got this. Just go.
All right, Public Works report is in the packet.
Remind me when Mark's time, is he going to go part-time?
I don't think he's quite decided. He originally he was talking about retiring in January. Then he was talking about maybe just going to a part-time status, or taking just one extra day off to be able to work around his ranch or his farm. And so I think he's he's trying to make the decision of where he's at and what he can do.
I don't think we should talk a whole lot more about that in open session, personally.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we're not insulting him or anything,
No.
but
or if it's, I believe it's a duplex to the north.
They're all duplexes on that block.
Yeah.
But duplexes are still R1, right? No?
No, this is all zoned R2 or 3. Is it 3? Yeah, R3.
So that was my question is, if he's going in with duplexes, which I assume he is, great, do we need to do any variance there at all?
No.
The base is covered, okay.
So R1 is the most restrictive. So R2 and R3, you can have a single family in an R2 or an R3. You just can't have a multifamily in an R1. R1 is the most restrictive, the other are the least. So it is zoned appropriately for duplexes, or if he just wants to put a smaller home there. So he's free to do whichever.
Okay.
Any discussion here on letter A?
So is this the bill 2502-1194?
Yes, sir.
I have a motion for that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. We approve bill number 25-02, ordinance number 1194.
All in favor?
Second.
Or second, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now read it by title.
Make a motion. We approve bill number 25-02, ordinance number 1194. This is an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Adrian, Missouri, approving the recommendation from the Planning Commission for a lot split located on the 200 block of North Hawthorne.
Have a second?
Second.
Alderman Vick?
Yes.
Alderman Hummel?
Yes.
Alderman Bridges?
Yes.
Alderman Sears?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Letter B.
So the next item, this came before you last year as real estate, but staff had put in horses as opposed to equine, which then now with equine it allows both horses, donkeys, and zebras.
But not llamas.
Llamas can be done through variance.
Okay.
Yes.
You better get some llama.
Yes, if they want a llama, USDA still regulate. Llamas are still considered exotics that are regulated by USDA, so they would have to get approval through USDA, and then they could get a variance. Yes.
I see some alpacas running around. The
They-
kids, the teenagers with their new haircuts. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. All right, let's have a motion for B. If you guys don't have any discussion. If you have discussion,
My only question kind of is, this says, I remember it says 3 acres or more.
That's
So
correct.
how many places inside the city are 3 acres or more?
I think there are 4 or 5 total,
Okay.
and most of them are on the south part of the city.
Okay. All right.
Make a motion that we pass bill number 2503, ordinance number 1195.
have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, read by title.
Make a motion, bill number 2503, ordinance number 1195, an ordinance to amend ordinance 813, section 4, residential district, adding the additional residential classification of rural estate.
Second.
Roll call. Alderman Vick?
Yes.
Alderman Hummel?
Yes.
Alderman Bridges?
Yes.
Alderman Sears?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
2 down, 3 to go.
So this next section, it removes some language from our zoning and then adds additional. So the language that it removes is it actually takes out the language of recreational vehicles as residences. Currently, it says no recreational vehicle may be used as a residence for longer than 30 days in 1 calendar year. And so what we've seen and what we're starting to have some challenges with are people that are using it, and it's prolonging longer than 30 days. And so what we wanted to do is remove that language and then actually create, if somebody needs a special, they can get a special use permit to where if they need it for a special consideration, if they're remodeling a home or they're having new construction, or if there's some other emergency purpose, then they would go to apply for a variance or a special use permit to be able to extend that. But that way we're in the know up front. We can set ground rules. We can set whatever contingencies in place. And so instead of it being a free-for-all and then, and I don't want to say hiding it, but doing it to where it's not known by the city, we allow a process to go into where it can be done, but it's more controlled at the same time.
So why make are we open for discussion?
Go ahead.
Why make it more restrictive than it already is if we're not? I mean, I get the part where we're going to the city or the city's going to issue basically special use permits. But what I don't like is the other part of it, which is more restrictive than what we already have, and we already can't enforce what we already have. So what in the world makes us think that we can enforce an ambiguous phrase like no recreational vehicle may be stored in an open, occupied, or lived-in appearance or condition? What in the world does that mean?
So that
besides what your opinion is.
Well, so that means, and what the general accepted definition is slide outs out, power run to it, water running to it, in an open, lived-in condition.
Just because power's running to a camper or the slides are out does not mean that it's being lived in.
That's true.
A lot of people store their campers with the slides out.
Well, I was at
A lot of people store their campers plugged in.
I was at the
that's how
zoning commission for this, and there was discussion on this. And so what this does is it gives probable cause to check. So if there are slide outs out and is lines going to it, then the code enforcement officer can go and investigate that.
Okay, so we're giving the government the more ability to walk into somebody's yard because they don't like the way somebody's camper looks, is what we're doing.
We're making sure that nobody's living in it.
It's pretty obvious when somebody's living in it.
Yeah, sure.
And you already stated we have people living in them for more than 30 days, and we've done nothing about that, or we've been able to do nothing about that. But now, instead of enforcing the code that we already have, this is exactly like saying that I shouldn't own an automatic weapon because somebody else shot somebody up with one. This is the exact same thing. Why are we impinging on people who are not breaking the already existing law by making the law more restrictive? That's my question. This is not what I don't want to be involved in this. This is government overreach, in my opinion. It's none of your dang business if somebody has a camper in their backyard.
And with respect, I don't have any challenges with somebody having a camper in their backyard. The challenge is when people decide to use those as residences. Most municipal code do not allow campers as residences, largely because otherwise, why have zoning? We restrict campers to RV parks if you're going to live in them. This, I'm sure, when they put it in the ordinance, was for, you have kids coming for a weekend, it'll let you stay 30 days in it. It was never intended to be used as a home. This does make it a little bit more restrictive from the standpoint of, okay, you can't live in them unless you have a special use permit for it. So it does close the door to where you're free to do it for 30 days. Now, you do have to come and have a permit for it so that we have to approve it so that we can know when the start date is, when the finish date. Right now, we're forced to go and catch somebody. And it's not easy to find one that is being lived in, because people have done things that are sneaky. They make sure that they shut all the lights off, they're out of them by 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And we're having that experience. Basically what we're doing now through our process and through codes, we're trying to evict people from the campers. And if you've ever been involved in an eviction process, I mean, it's long, it's time consuming. And so the thought is just to remove that opportunity, create an opportunity to where if you're going to need this for your kid, that's, we had somebody approach us that said, hey, my son's getting out of the Air Force. He was going to live with us for 6 months. Okay, well, we didn't have any provision to allow that. Well, now this actually has a provision to allow that, to where they don't have to do it behind our back, to where, okay, are we going to get caught for 30 days? And so that's it's not designed to punish as more. It's to design to. It does create an opportunity. It's just not as. It's not a free for all, sir.
So we have violations of this already existing ordinance that we can't even verify. So how much of a problem are these violations that we can't even find and we can't even verify? Like what problem is this causing that now we need to make this law even more restrictive? That's my question. You just said that we think we have people doing this now, but it's almost impossible to catch them doing it. So they're obviously not causing any problems by doing it. They're not causing any harm. They're not, that's what I don't understand about this.
Yeah, Jeremy, if I may, on my side of town, I know of two that are, I'm sure the officer could speak to much more than I could, where that people are living in RV units. They're breaking the law. They are known drug centers. They're a very negative impact on our community. So not that applies to everybody, just the situation, and I don't know how the committee landed on the definition of open, occupied, and lived in, but I don't know how we solve that problem, but it is a problem. It's not a, hey, you've got an RV in your yard and that's fine, That,
so you're trying to solve a drug problem by getting rid of the RVs?
Well,
that's what it seems like to me.
We're not trying to get rid of RVs. The intent originally, when this was put in, was that there was obviously a board of aldermen and citizens that did not want everybody bringing in their RVs and living in them on their properties. And so the language that we're talking about here is it's one of that can be used and abused, because you can hop in and out every 30 days or whatever and basically live in there forever because you're using that language.
But I can't put my slides out more than 14 days a year, or then I get a ticket.
No, that's not what it's saying.
That's exactly what it says. He just described.
I'm
when
sorry.
I asked for
I'm
a
sorry.
definition,
yeah.
Slides out was one of the
right.
I keep my camper plugged in, and it's not just because of me.
I
what I really don't like
saying.
is the overreach here.
Yeah.
But I keep my camper plugged in because it keeps my inverter powered up, and so my battery doesn't go bad, because batteries are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's why I keep it plugged in. I keep my slides out because it stores better that way. The rubber seals on the slides don't get worn out. There's a whole bunch of reasons why I keep the slides out.
Sure.
And my daughter once in a while goes out there and practices her saxophone, which is nice to have that and not have her in the house doing it.
Right, but she's not living in it.
But it's not hooked. I'm not dumping sewer on the ground.
Right.
I'm not. There's. But basically, now I'm going to be in violation of the law because somebody else lives in an RV and does drugs. And we already have this law here, this ordinance here, that says they can't live there more than 30 days. And we've already admitted that we can't enforce it. So why in the world would we make this ordinance more restrictive and even harder to enforce? Or just...
There's nobody saying that they can't enforce it. They're
in
saying that
respect,
it's difficult to enforce it.
If we change it to this language, it actually makes it easier to enforce, because we don't allow anybody to live in them.
It makes it easier to enforce against honest people, is what it does.
Well, to enforce against people not living there, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or anybody who has their slides out for 14 days out of the year. Nobody's ever lived in the camper in my backyard.
So let me ask you
Ever.
this. I don't remember our discussion on that, but what was the penalty for an open and occupied or lived in vehicle?
So, the way that our current zoning penalties work, there is not a monetary fine. Our penalty is that if you're in violation of anything in the codes and zoning section, the city can turn off your water, your power, or your gas. That is our only recourse to bring compliance. We can't fine anybody. There's no penalty. The penalty is we turn off your utilities, and we have agreements with the electric company and the gas company in order to do so. Which is not a path that I want to go down.
You know, Ryan, I understand
The intention.
your point about we've created an environment where it is, become an eviction issue, which it never should have been in the first place. So I don't know what the right verbiage is. Maybe this isn't the right verbiage, Jeremy.
And we don't
But
have
I
to pass
do
it. We
wanna-
can kick it back and rewrite it again,
But
too.
I'm
Well,
gonna
and you guys
create-
can all vote yes, and I can vote no, and we'll move on, and that's fine.
And that too.
But I'm just like,
So what I'm
feels like government overreach to me.
What I want to figure out how do we accomplish, the goal that I want to figure out how we accomplish is to empower our community, empower our police officers to prevent the problem from happening in the first place. I don't know if I have the nuts and bolts answer on how to make that happen, but if we can make the job of enforcement easier from day one, I think that's a win for our community.
Well, I agree with you, Jeff, and I think my problem with this, or what I don't like about this, is that what is the problem? Let's identify the problem. Is the problem the RVs, or is the problem the people living in the RVs? And then let's not punish people who don't live in their RVs, who have RVs, by giving our police officers the authority to walk into their yard because their slides have been out for 14 days. That's what I'm talking. And I'm not saying our police officers would. I'm just like,
I think, okay, can I speak for a second?
You can speak.
So, I agree on both ends. And yes, most of the people that are causing these issues are narcotics users. But it's a cat and mouse game with this. I don't know if this is more so codes enforcement or if it's going to fall on this. But I don't know that would just give us the right to willy-nilly walk into somebody's home per se because their slides are out. I mean, and I don't want to go too deep in this. I've only been a police officer for a year, so it's not like I have all the knowledge in the world to battle this argument. But I don't know.
Well, and part of the challenge is that, again, R1 is the most restrictive. And so by having trailers to where people can use them as residences in the most restrictive, so now you have multifamily in an R1, which is not the design of an R1. And so it defeats the purpose.
Sure.
And so, and again, I mean, I have no skin in the game. I mean, if we want to allow trailers and people to live in trailers, so be it. But just understand that if we remove the restrictions to where everybody can have trailers and people living in them, your community is going to start looking considerably different than what it does right now.
but that's
With the
not
opportunity.
we have the ordinance that says they can't live in it.
Right.
No, I'm not saying anybody should be allowed to live in them. I agree, at least to the degree that I agree with zoning at all, which isn't much. But I just think this is an exaggerated reaction to, and I'll tell you, this has happened to me at work before, where we had one problem employee, where that kept causing specifically. I'll give you an example. We had a guy that kept bringing his lawnmower business trailer into work and parking it in the parking lot. I'm a firefighter, so we got guys working second jobs. We got a guy that would always bring his trailer in with his mowers on it, and some citizens complain because they don't like it that we get to work second jobs sometimes, and so that ended up turning into this big giant rigmarole, and now nobody can bring a trailer, and then progressively nobody can bring a big pickup truck, and then and it's just like, all that really needed to happen was the one guy needed to be told, you can't bring your lawnmower trailer in to work every shift. And that's what I feel like this is like, we've got maybe a very small problem, an isolated problem with maybe a couple of 2 or 3 people around town that are taking advantage of this ordinance that already exists, and it's going to end up causing people who are not doing anything wrong at all to now be in violation of an ordinance and to have to change their way of life, and they're just because you got 2 or 3 people doing something that they shouldn't be doing. That's the way I feel about it, and that's why I don't like it, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
May I offer an amendment? Would you feel more comfortable if we go ahead and strike section 4.1-2, which is the 30-day permit or 30-day allowance, not add section A, so don't even add that. Basically, we'll delete section 4.1-2 altogether, and then add section F, which allows for the permitted process.
I like section F.
So if we amended the ordinance to not include section A, but to delete out the 30-day provision, and then add section F, would that make it more comfortable, sir?
Would that? I really am looking for a solution that helps the city too.
Absolutely.
With enforcement.
That would.
But would that help?
If we can tell people that you cannot live in your trailer unless you have a special permit to do so, that would help us, because then the precedent is established to where you can do it for 30 days without telling us. Especially if somebody does it in December, and because it says calendar year, so now they're in it for 60 days because they have it now December and January. And so then trying to determine, okay, when did you move in? So if we just say, you know what, you can't live in them at all, that does help us out.
So what is the process of getting a special permission?
So basically what they would do is we would create an application process. They would come before the variance board to get a variance and to approve the permit process.
Okay, so there would be several steps to the process.
That is correct.
So they just can't show up on a Thursday afternoon and say,
That
I
is
want to
correct.
move in this weekend.
That is correct.
And
Okay.
because of this is already on the books, there's no grandfathering in. Right now, you're not allowed to live in a
That is
thing. So it's not like, well, you hear what I'm saying? No.
I would feel a lot better with that 4.1-2A not being in there.
So kind of on the conversation of fines, did the zoning committee have a discussion about, hey, we want to add a fine if people are not in compliance?
I don't remember what is our power in our code.
So again, there's not a monetary fine. It is literally the hammer.
We would have to amend the
utilities.
code to put fines
Now,
in.
I will
Yeah.
admit, and from all the ones that I've seen, Adrian's is unique with allowing them to turn off utilities, because that is a pretty big motivator. We had a situation this past summer that somebody had parked a trailer that people were living in an alleyway. And so we gave them 30 days because we wanted to be, even though it was in an alleyway, it wasn't a utilized alleyway. But so we gave them the 30 days because that's what our code allowed. And then after the 30 days, we went back to them and said, okay, you need to have it moved. And they're like, well, they were very standoffish, and we said, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you an additional 7 days to move it, and at the end of the 7 days, I'm going to turn off your electricity, your gas, and your water. Now, it was in August when we were having that extreme heat. That was the most motivating thing because the trailer was moved in 2 days. And so, whether you do it with fines, the challenge then becomes how do you collect it?
Yeah.
And, so
Our forefathers seen that was
it's an
prudent.
it is a
and
very effective,
Yeah.
very effective. Now, again, it's do I want to do that? Absolutely not. But I want everybody to be in compliance with the rules in the first place.
Okay, let's do this then. Let's. I'm going to offer that we vote this down. We kick it back to the zoning board to take out the 4.1-2A and leave it with the section 2F in there, and then bring it back to us to approve it. That way the 30 days is out, because we still have to approve that amendment, because it's in there as we speak. Is that right, Ryan? Is that what we're...
What,
Or can we vote on an amendment right now?
So, in this case, since it's a text amendment that you guys are wanting to do, what I would suggest is to make a motion to send it back to P&Z for further discussion.
To
and
get the
then-
verbiage right.
Yes, and then lay out what you guys want them to look at, and then they'll look at it again, bring you their recommendation, and then you guys can vote on it.
Because they recommended striking the current language
Yep.
altogether, so that
Mhm.
was the recommendation. And then they recommended adding this language, but if we don't add that,
Right.
does that need to go back before them if we're striking this one to begin with?
Well, hold on.
I know this is
Hold on.
Now you're making your money.
It's the only thing. It's the only thing in that
Hold on.
section.
The big bucks.
Okay, so if they have
If it's-
already recommended
Yeah, because it's.
up front, this guy.
Nope.
Yeah, I think since it comes from P&Z, we have to
Otherwise-
acknowledge it one way or
Right.
the other. We either have to
Right.
vote yes or no
So
on it, I
this is
think.
the only thing in
I don't
that
think-
section that they recommended deleting.
Okay.
We added the other
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
Yeah, basically we can vote it no.
Well, you just keep that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You just don't you just don't make a motion.
Yeah.
You don't have to bring it to the floor.
In order to send it back, make a motion to send it back with a second.
Okay.
But if
so-
we amend, can we amend it here to just strike the section that they're recommending?
What I would suggest is, since we're still, did they say to add F?
Yes. Yes.
So if that's the case, since we're not doing anything necessarily, so P&Z had suggested to add the new definition of A
Right, because it,
and also add F
right, to a different section.
to a different section.
Yes, so 4.13 is F.
Right.
4.12 only
Mhm.
has that section.
But since, I think in this case, since you're not saying you're going to add additional text that they didn't consider, what we need to do is, you don't have to send it back. You can obviously send it back if you want, but you don't have to send it back as long as there's a supermajority on the board that votes for that amendment. Because if there's not the supermajority on the board, since it's kind of going against what P&Z initially said, even though you're not adding something different, you guys would need the supermajority for that one in order for it to pass.
I propose we send it back to P&Z. I know we have an option here, but that's
Mhm.
just my feeling.
Yep.
That way we
Do we need a motion to send it back to
Yes.
P&Z? Okay, so
Yeah.
I make a motion that we send back to P&Z bill number 2504, ordinance number 1196, to review the verbiage guidelines set forth in 41-2.
have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
This makes it cleaner.
All right, let's move on to letter D.
So letter D, something that's a lot less contentious. We're just adding a definition to a permitted use within our business district of event spaces and rental venues. Our current zoning does not have a specific definition or a specific allowance for event spaces, and so we were adding that to actually encompass at least 2 different event spaces that are currently in town.
So we're adding definition letter Q to 6.3.1 out of section 1. Anybody got any discussion on that?
Seems pretty straightforward.
All right, can I have a motion then?
I move, we approve ordinance, bill number 2505, ordinance number 1197.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now motion by title.
Move to approve bill number 2505, ordinance number 1197, an ordinance to amend ordinance 813, section 631, permitted uses by right, adding the additional permitted use of event spaces and rental venues.
Second.
Third.
Vic? Roll
Yes.
call. Hummel?
Yes.
Bridges?
Yes.
Sears?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Letter E.
And so this ordinance basically is allowing and kind of defining the process of lot splits that the board has taken. It's just not clearly spelled out within the code. So 12.A-1 is the process of planning and zoning to be able to regulate lot splits, complex lot splits of 4 or more new lots. And then also adding 12A-2, which allows the city administrator to have the authority to approve simple lot splits of 3 or fewer. Basically simplifying the process, cutting the timeline down for developers to be able to split a lot and be able to build new houses. Many communities around us have gone to this process. Harrisonville, Butler, Belton. They've added this so that they didn't have to take it to a planning and zoning commission, then to the board of aldermen before a lot can be split. And so it's just to simplify the process.
So it's pretty standard, the city administrator having the ability to do the smaller ones.
Typically, it's done by the community development director, but yes.
In our community, 4 is going to be a city block.
Correct. So like the first one that you voted on for David Brownsburger, that was one lot being divided into 4. So that one would still have to go through planning and zoning and then come before the board of aldermen. But now going forward, the remainder of that block, since it's now 3 or fewer, now I'll be able to handle that and be able to speed that time frame up for our developers.
Make a motion, we approve bill number 2506, ordinance number 1198.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion by title.
Make a motion.
Make a motion.
Commotion was
Australia.
about 10 minutes ago.
I make a motion to approve bill number 25-06, ordinance number 1198, an ordinance to amend ordinance 813, section 12, amendments and changes to include section 12.A, lot splits.
Second.
Roll call. Vic?
Yes.
Hummel?
Yes.
Bridges?
Yes.
Sears?
Yes.
Gentlemen, that's all the new business that we have for this evening.
Do we have any reason to go into executive session?
We do not, sir.
I have a
I
question.
have a question too, go ahead.
We have discussion time.
So probably should have done this during unfinished, but did we ever, we talked about getting the fees from the Frontier Village folks and all that.
Contract.
Wasn't there something you were going to have to rewrite on that?
Yeah, I'm getting with the attorney to
Okay.
redraft those contracts.
Okay,
For
I
those
just-
two. Yes, sir.
I wondered if I missed it.
No.
The parking, the parallel parking, is that not going into effect?
With the storms, we were waiting on the signs to come in, and so I believe we have the signs, so we'll get them up.
Well, I wonder if that didn't, my second question, I'm sure the storms had something to do with that, but just coming here tonight, like downtown is packed and they're parking off by the tracks, and have a solution, but maybe we need to start thinking about more parking. I mean, we're kind of booming on most nights of the week. I don't have a magic parking law, but something to think about.
Well, the city-owned lot that's behind, it's to the south of Main Street, where City Hall used to be, that's available for parking. And so, many people, use it as overflow. We could stripe it, to make it more convenient, if that's something that we chose to do.
Is the north of the Lions Club, is that just sort of free for all, not north, sorry, west?
That's a private lot.
Is that, that is a lot, but then across the street along
The railroad tracks?
Does
that-
Ethan own that? Does Ethan own that property? I mean, they park cars there every day.
Not
Across
on,
the street from
not on
Ethan's?
this side.
This side.
Yeah, he has an agreement with the
Okay.
property owner to be able to park his
Okay.
I
overflow.
meant this side of
Yeah.
Oh,
Max Stevens.
Oh, where the old
The
hardware
west
store
side
was?
of Max Stevens.
Yes.
Is that city parking, or is that just sort of?
It's not designated city
I think it's
parking.
anything.
It's owned by the railroad, because I think it's in their easement.
How much easement do they have, do we know? Just out of curiosity. I can pull it up.
Okay.
that's Sadoff that owns most of this, right?
Yes, and Ethan got permission from them.
Okay.
Who owns the pad where the hardware store used to be?
I will tell you here in just a second.
Yeah, 'cause I've
That's
seen
Richie.
people
The
park
pad,
Yeah, I believe, yeah.
They own that whole thing?
Yeah, he bought that.
I think you're right. He did. So it looks like, to me,
Because that'd be a good parking spot.
Well, then Roger owns the other side, Roy owns the other side
People
of the
park
Lions
it
Club.
anyway.
Right, so if we can clean it up and
Make it
make
actually
it a little
park.
bit
I'm not seeing on my app. Let's see what the Big Boys app says.
An easement line.
It doesn't have it either.
I mean, look at GAI.
So the railroad, I forget, I think they own 50 feet on either side of the rail.
50 feet is the minimum.
Is
Yeah,
it?
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
On the same railroad.
Yeah. And so.
So they have a 100-foot easement, is what you're saying.
Yes. So the majority of this would be rail easement.
That comes right up to the edge of our street. Then.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
So technically speaking, they could.
It could be utilized, but if the railroad would ever have an issue, I mean, you would have to move it. But as a temporary situation.
Well,
I
it's
could-
been a parking spot for
Yeah.
years there, as long as I can remember.
This is the city lot that.
Right. We should really highly encourage people to try to use our city lot back there for additional parking.
Well-
And then parking on the, in my opinion, this is just discussion, right?
Yes, sir.
We're just discussing. Parking on the side of the street, north and south of Main Street on Lexington or Max Stevens, seems like it could be an issue with traffic.
It is it can become a narrow
I've
road.
been by here many times and
Yeah.
there's cars parked out. They try to get off the street, but they're not usually off the street. Now here you can get off the street and get into that little empty pad there, but
And that was kind of a mess tonight, like if you could get double parked in there pretty easy, it looked like.
yeah.
Well, I wonder if he would be open to, if we provided the signage and the striping, if he let us stripe it.
This here,
Yeah,
Jeremy?
that little pad
Yeah, that's
Next to the
OSI.
florist. Is that what
across the
we're-
road,
Is
across
that-
the
is
street
that
from
Joey
the force
Bailey?
is what I'm talking about.
Street from the forest. Okay.
Where Max Stevens Hardware, or no, the florist is though.
Oh, on the-
Where it is on the north side.
On the
Yeah.
north side.
Yeah,
Turn that-
west of
if
Chrysler.
We could purchase and
Yes.
turn that into a lot.
Oh,
Parking lot.
so
Right by the Lions Club.
so that's Larry Smith.
Mhm.
We could reach out to him to see.
what his plans are.
Because this lot has in the summer, in the spring and summer, it's always a challenge because he doesn't mow it, he doesn't keep it up. I mean, so we could reach out to see what the thought is, and it would be a great alternative to have parking all the way down,
Another thing-
especially as busy as Main Street's becoming.
Especially for that side of the street, and then you could use the Adrian's or the city lot for the south side of the street, you can use that for the north side.
Could we put some signage up pointing people in the direction of the city lot?
We
on
could
the south
absolutely do
side?
that. Yes, sir.
Additional parking signs?
Pretty cool. Issue that.
There's options that we can look at, even over here, you know. But the problem is that there's a lot of folk that don't want to walk. Now they'll go up to the Kansas City area and they'll walk for 3 miles up and down the Country Club Plaza, but they won't walk from our
They'll circle this block 8 times.
and wait for an empty parking spot. So the more we provide information that this is available down here right now as we speak, through our website, Facebook page, and signage, I think we'll get maybe some more takers on that, especially as better weather comes. But let's reach out to the property owner for sure, and maybe even reach out to the railroad and see if we
I'll
can
talk
work
to
out a
them.
deal with them.
I can tell you a real good way to have people start parking in the back is start metering the spots along the road.
We'd be real popular if we did that.
They got that over in Amsterdam, don't
They
they?
So Ryan, do we have extra gravel around that we can do a quick facelift to the parking area?
We
That
can
was
make,
a joke.
yes.
Record.
So it just so happens that
You're having a
the
little
quarry that
area
we've been getting our rock from is closing down.
And
so we got as much of it as possible in our public works yard, just for convenience, because we weren't sure how much it was going to be to have to change quarry. So, yes, sir, we have gravel.
Yeah.
Hopefully
It needs a little love.
in
Yes.
the next year or 2 or 3, we can pave it
That'd be great.
and making it official.
You can go fishing in a couple of those ponds there on that parking lot.
Any more discussion about anything? You guys got anything?
So is the
Mr.
parking
Dick?
lot behind the wine journal now?
Yes.
Is that public parking?
Yes.
Yes.
And now you're thinking about opening up along Max Stevens?
Right here. Yep.
Okay.
Good problems to have.
Good.
It's very good problems.
Yeah.
It means that our downtown is still very much alive.
Yep. Anything else? Anybody got anything on their mind? Have a motion to adjourn?